Welcome to the CLAWS YouTube channel.
Together, we strive for a safer, secure, and more stable world.
Welcome, General Sudhakar sir. We are live and we are going to start now. Good evening. You are welcome to the first IiRF CLAWS joint stream podcast. Henceforth, this joint podcast will take place once a week and cover topics of national and security and geopolitical issues. I am Group Captain Mehta, retired Vice President of the Indus International Research Foundation. Today, I am the host and moderator of this inaugural podcast. Our esteemed guest speaker today are Colonel Raina and Lieutenant General Sudhakar Ji, both India's leading experts on global terrorism, J&K, and geopolitics. Our audience will be glad to know that Colonel Raina has a record of publishing, editing 29 books on the above topics and has grassroots knowledge on narco-terrorism from Myanmar to Central Asia and Middle East. Major General Sudhakar Ji, who is also the distinguished fellow and advisor of the Indian International Research Foundation, is a well-known and much favorite, frequently invited guest on the primetime national television on geopolitical matters. So today we are going to discuss the Middle East conflict and its wider political ramification, especially as it relates to India. Today we are going to discuss the Middle East, though the genesis of Arab-Israel conflict, as you know, lies in the partition of Palestine in 1947 between Muslims and Jews. The current round of conflict started on October 7th when 1,200 innocent Israelis were killed, houses were burnt, many women alleged to have been raped, and 250 Israeli citizens, women, children, and elderly were taken hostage by the Hamas fighters. Soon after this, Shia militias under unacknowledged leadership of Iran attacked Israel from not one but 7 fronts by rockets and other means with the sole intention to destroy it. Israeli retaliation was massive and forceful. Ironically, much pressure was applied on Israel by the UNO, International Court of Justice, Western governments. They all tried to impose all kinds of restraints on Israel in this war, diluting its response commensurate to its security needs. Notwithstanding these pulls and pressure, Israel did succeed in neutralizing the formidable multi-layered ring of fire created around it by Iran. Gentlemen, post October 7, 2023, Prime Minister Netanyahu vowed to hunt down those responsible for the worst carnage in Israeli history. IDF thereafter eliminated the heads of terror organization Hamas and Hezbollah, liquidated almost all top mid-level commanders and their military wings, destroyed their elaborate tunnels, systems, stockpiles of rockets, arms, storage, etc. Mr. Netanyahu also proved wrong the assessment of most military experts by giving a very devastating blow to Hamas and Hezbollah and dismantling their terror infrastructure, which the experts at one point of time felt impossible. Other Shia militia groups supported by Iran's Ayatollah regime in Iraq, Syria, and Yemen, who were the partners in this conspiracy and conflict against Israel, were also given heavy blows, rendering them almost really ineffective. Israeli actions became the major contributing factor for the fall of the decades-old brutal Bashar al-Assad regime, which is a monumental factor, outcome of this conflict. And Netanyahu, with the help of his friend Trump, has also succeeded, even though partially, to mitigate his mortal fear of nuclear threat by Iran to Israel's very existence, at least for the time being. All of this has changed the power equation in Middle East uh, substantially, and the map of Middle East is about to be reset. And the personal equation of the Middle Eastern states with Israel and Iran is also in a reset mode. Nearly 2 years long intense Israeli military campaign has many ups and downs, with high human cost and Israeli loss of life pitted as 2,050, including 800 IDF soldiers. The casualty figures are highest in the history of conflict. Gentlemen, Prime Minister Netanyahu was very clear from the very beginning. He has set two military objectives: bring all the hostages back and obliterate Hamas completely, to deny its role in Gaza in the future. After 2 years, both objectives appears far from achieved. While Israel has secured release of 200 hostages, Hamas still holds some 50 hostages in its custody, of which 20 are believed to be alive. Though IDF controls 70% of the Gaza and destroyed around 23 of the 24 Hamas battalions, Hamas has replenished these losses rapidly and still holds 30% of the territories in Khan Yunis, Dar e Balah, and Gaza City area. Just few days back, Israeli cabinet approved a full-fledged military operation for the complete takeover of Gaza. Mobilization order of 60,000 reservist soldiers have already been issued, and target softening operation has already begun. This massive operation has been endorsed by US negotiator Steve Witkoff and President Trump, probably to bring maximum pressure on Hamas to capitulate it, surrender, and release the rest of the hostages in one go, in single team. That's the issue that is going on at the moment. This conflict, therefore, throws up following questions to discuss in today's IIRF CLAWS podcast. These are: what will be the end game looks like? What will be the day after arrangement for Gaza? What happens to the Trump's plan to turn Gaza into tourist Riviera? What happens to the settlement plans of Gazans in neighboring states? What happens to the two-state solution that France and Australia, they have just announced that they are going to recognize Palestine as a state? What will happen to the two-state solution under these circumstances? Now, what happens to the Abraham Accord? Very important. What happens to IMEC project? Gentlemen, IMEC project is a economic corridor project from India to Haifa port via Saudi Arabia, Oman, and it goes to Europe. It's a very important project. So how much the downturn in Indo-American relation is likely to impact India's participation in the above IMEC project? For your information, the Haifa port is being developed by the Adani Group of India for this purpose. Another question that is pertinent is: what is the future of Iran's regional ambition in this endgame? And will Palestinian problem be put rest after all this, or will it flare up further with the unprecedented global support? Now, to probe all these, answer to these questions and unravel all the unknowns, we will request our expert speaker, First Colonel Ajay Rana, to please share his insights into this matter. And the floor is yours, Colonel Raina. We are eager to hear you. Go
Thank
ahead,
you,
sir.
sir. Good evening to you, sir. Good evening, General Sudhakar ji, sir. And of course, namaskar and good evening and Jai Hind to all those watching us or listening to us while driving. Uh, Sir, before I come down to before we get into answers, questions which you listed, very pertinent questions. As an introductory remark, I would say that I'll start with the fact that there are certain developments which have started happening once again. There was a pause when Iran thing ended, and then focus shifted to other things across the globe. There's certainly things have started moving in this Israel Hamas theater, so to say. So if today we look at that area or that region, so Israel has escalated its offensive in Gaza, and the southern neighborhoods like Shijaya, Sabra, Jitown, there are a lot of air activity happening, air strikes and ground strikes happening there. Tanks are moving in, jets are flying, and this happened just after the incident where 20 Hamas cadre they emerged from a tunnel from inside a house, and they tried to take IDF post by surprise, thereby indicating that Hamas is not dead. And if from one tunnel 20 guys can come out, though most of them were killed and then few captured, it shows that Hamas is alive and kicking. And that's why this Israel is justifying this escalation, calling it Operation Gideon Chariot 2. And they are called about 60,000 reservists. As we all know that every Israeli is technically a Fauji. So they've taken called back 60,000 of them, or relisted them, and they, as per their plan, by mid-September, Israel should be in control of Gaza City. Will it happen or not? That, of course, like Group Captain Mehta mentioned, that there's a military aim and then certain things are achieved, certain are not achieved. Like Bibi Netanyahu's announcement or declaration that it will finish Hamas, but Hamas is yet to be finished. Of course, Gaza has been 70% of Gaza is under Israeli control, as mentioned. At the same time, UN is now started talking about, in fact, not talking, raising hue and cry about 21st century famine. And they're saying about 5 lakh, 500,000 people in Gaza are now going to get starved, and kids will start dying in a week's time. Now they're saying that it's because of Israel's attitude and interference and not allowing aid to reach. Israel says that whatever aid is coming in, we are not doing anything. It's welcome, but then complete aid is going to Hamas, and Hamas is the one who's holding back the aid and not letting it go to the last person on the street. And of course, Israel also says that this starvation, the figures 500,000 is a falsity. And then Israel comes down to technical issues like tell us how many calories are being denied, how many calories are being consumed, how can you say people are starving? Starvation is related to calorie consumption, all that. So these things are also happening at the same time. Gaza Health Ministry claims that about 290 people already died last week because of starvation. Now this needs to be verified, but of course there's a crisis. At the same time, there's a hostage situation, like you mentioned, sir. So Israel thinks and feels and believes that only one or two remaining hostages, there are around 50 of them still left. They must be in life-threatening condition. Half of them are possibly dead. So maybe 10, 12 guys will finally emerge if they are released. Now, Hamas is saying it's okay. We will do hostage release. You give us our prisoners back and let's have a 60-day ceasefire. These are things which are happening off late, suddenly. That's why I said that after Iran was bombed, nuclear facilities were bombed, there was a kind of a pause which came up, and then people shifted the focus to tariff wars and Ukraine war and that theater. But what we need to understand is this spurt in activity is also because of one reason which is possibly not on the horizon of many people, that America is making inroads into Central Asian region. See the operation in Syria, where the possible opposition could have come from Russia and Iran. That was operation headed by Turkey from north, and Israel also then went in and from the south and west. So that time Russia was embroiled heavily in Ukraine. Russia couldn't do anything. China as a policies, it doesn't get involved in that conflicts. It also stayed back. So Syria went off out of the hand of the Syria frontier where Russia and China had good influence. That's gone. Then they came on to Iran, again a friend of Russia, a friend of China, and we all know what happened. At the same time, so-called Trump corridor, which is now technically connecting Turkey with Caspian Sea. Now, Caspian Sea is beginning of Central Asian region, and this gas, the huge gas reserves, which the second largest reserves after Gulf of gas, and of course a considerable amount of oil. So America is now inching down into something which is generally referred to as backyard of Russians. That is Central Asian region. And with Ukraine thing, as the things move, and my own personal opinion is that America has tried to get out of this Ukraine thing and left everything to Russia, and he's left Europe to Russia, and he's just selling weapons to Ukraine, and Europe is buying it for Ukraine. If that kind of understanding actually happens, which looks likely between Trump and Putin, that means any aggression or any advancement or any encroachment into Central Asian region will be opposed by China and Russia. So in this thing, in my opinion, for all we know that in years to come, we may have a flashpoint coming up in Central Asian region. So while all that is happening, Israel is decided to move. While the focus of the world is on Ukraine, focus of the world is on tariffs, focus of the world is everywhere else, and this theater had cooled down. So that's why we see this thing. But at the same time, while America was doing what it was doing, the talks on 60-day ceasefire was happening. Like you mentioned, you had US presidential representative visiting Israel. So 60 days where they said, let's have a 60-day ceasefire. Israel will get the hostages and Hamas will get the prisoners. But Israel is saying, no, we just want all hostages to be liberated first, then we will stop operations. So this is a difference of opinion where Hamas says, okay, first let's stop fighting or
all
stop
in
killing
one
us.
go.
Yeah.
It is insisting to that point.
And they're also saying, okay, let's have a temporary unity government and do something. Now, international response, if you look, that also has moved suddenly, where France has said, okay, let's have a Palestinian state. So, in fact, France has its own issues to settle with the US, so it's playing its own card. But many analysts caution that the symbolic recognitions like France is doing or Italy is doing, without any robust political frameworks, will not actually bring in any peace in long term. At the same time, there's a lot of public pressure, and then when you close on to this region of the conflict zone, like in Gaza, you have now protests happening since March, where many residents are now coming out and calling for end to this conflict, and they're also saying Hamas rule must finish, because end of the day, the person who suffers is the man on ground on the street who's lost his house, whatever may be reason. I have no sympathy for Hamas, to be honest, after what they did to Israelis on October 7th. I have no love lost for such people. But at the end of the day, every society has layers. Though we say that this society has only produced Hamas, this society has only contributed, this society was cheering and clicking photographs when the girl's body was being paraded. That's all right. And that, of course, is something to worry. But the fact is that there's a man in the street who gets hit. So people are actually protesting that Hamas should go. And this, if Hamas pulling out stops the conflict, it should be stopped. At the same time, Egypt, when people started talking of moving Gazans out, we will discuss about it later. Egypt said, no, I am already having issues in Sinai Desert. There's an insurgency going on. I don't want more trouble. So his Rafah crossing is practically closed. Other than aid, nothing is moving. Jordan has his own issues. So this is how the things stand today, sir. And as we look forward, after what international effort is going on, whatever sincerity we can all discuss that it is sincere or not. So we are looking at a scenario where we may really have a phased ceasefire and a hostage deal and an interim administration, which is likely, which is so-called ramping, like India was offering off-ramp to Pakistan during operation. So they didn't take it for 4 days. So it could be 2 months truce, could be exchange of prisoners, and US, Egypt, Qatar, and all these people stand warranties, and then something may happen. But this is one possibility. Second is that nothing happens; it carries on the way it is, and Israel doesn't bother, and there's keep up with the September 25 plan to take over complete Gaza. If that is another possibility, in which case we will see more bloodshed. And of course, there could be a wider regional escalation, like it happened in Syria. Israel, in its own way, and as per their claim, they sorted out Lebanon. But Houthis are still active. Hezbollah, of course, after Lebanon government is also taking some steps. On what is happening in Iran, and yesterday only, Iran had four big fires going. There were accidents or sabotage in Tehran. Nobody knows. But Iran had given closed the airspace, Western airspace, for a while to carry out certain tests. So Iran, as per many observers, it has only used during that first phase of war with Israel, before the bombardment happened on nuclear installation. Iran has had fired missiles which were 10 to 15 years old, and they said the best of their stuff is yet to come. So if they also start something with Israel, then there's a regional escalation which will happen. So I think, sir, it's a very fluid situation. And with the person like Trump sitting in Washington and he does what he does, it's very difficult to predict, because US has a not only stake, it has a big role here, sir. While Hamas may not trust them, Israel is fully dependent on US. After a certain limit, US has the power to twist Israel's tail, though Israel tends to disobey or show defiance initially, that like they did while taking on Iran recently. So it's very difficult to predict the future, sir. But in this fluid situation, at the end of the day, sir, people are getting killed, and this conflict, which was be getting wound up, like you said, many experts were saying possibly Bibi Netanyahu's aim will never be achieved. There are others who were saying that Gaza will be taken out in 6 months. So none of those has actually happened. So in this era of uncertainty, my only hope, wish, and pray is that what I'm saying, that another flashpoint coming off in Central Asian region, the route of which passes through the neighborhood of Israel, that is Turkey, and then of course Syria, and then going to CAR, that doesn't flare up. Baki to sir, will wait and watch. It's very difficult to really predict. So
yeah. Thank you very much, Colonel Raina. You have given a good wrap-up, good view of what is happening. And now we will bring in General Sudhakar to give his more wider geopolitical understanding of the happenings in this part of the earth and world. And it is said that if anything happens in Middle East, no country in the world remains unaffected, because most of the countries are sourcing their petroleum from the Middle East. The Suez Canal is blocked, and so the prices goes up. Everybody gets affected. So, General Sudhakar sir, kindly throw some light on what's the wider implication and ramifications of what is happening.
Yeah, Raj, good evening, and thank you for getting me to your inaugural show. And compliments to very distinguished panelist Ajay. And any amount of praise would still fall short. He is the man who deserves to have the last word on any subject. I have got highest of regards to his research ability and the eye for detail and the way he joins the dots. There are a lot of things to learn from him, to be very honest. While Ajay has given a panorama of semi-strategic and tactical issues, just allow me to give the larger perspective. The larger perspective is, let me start. Where do I start from? Much as I would like to be optimistic in all my articulations, but I can't help. Unfortunately, they are laced with so much of pessimism that it's actually being a start point. Okay, let me start with the superpower, the status of the superpower today. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an irony that we have to use expressions as a declining superpower which is very realistic by virtue of its economic status, its political stability, by virtue of its technological supremacy having been overtaken by China, by virtue of its credibility, by virtue of being heard the world over, with very classical turning points which are evident, right? Not only the day Russia invaded into Ukraine, there are many such, there are invasions into the Muslim world, and almost they're virtually floundering to have their feet on the ground, not as per the expectations of the American constituency. So, with this kind of a backdrop, there is every element of a superpower is showing decline, and particularly when you start with the economic status. Today, USA has got 37 trillion. Not, I'm not trying to disregard what is come in the media now. Just half an hour back, they may be trying to narrow the gap between the revenue earning and the debt. The debt is $37 trillion. And plus, if you add the BBB, 5 trillion, it comes to 42 trillion. What it means is with $37 trillion, for a common man's understanding, USA has to dole out something close to $1 trillion for the debt servicing, for the interest servicing. On top of it, if you actually factor in to running the administration or the country, they require something to the tune of 6 trillion in a year. And their revenue generation is 4 trillion. So there is a deficit of 2 trillion here, 1 trillion for interest servicing, 3 trillion. Where does USA get this money from? And Congress also has got its limitation. It can only sanction or approve only up to a particular level. Now I think they're planning to approach Congress as to how do they bridge the gap. Do they go in for printing of dollars now? If that happens, it has got consequential implications world over. There will be a ripple effect. So just keep this factor in the mind. And second point, technological supremacy being overtaken. There was a time between 2003 to 2007 where the 64 critical technologies, USA was leading in 61. China was leading in just about 3. Now, when you take stock of the same thing in 2025, you find that China is leading in 57 and USA is leading in 7 only. Similarly, you talk about the rare earth element or critical minerals, antimony, gallium, germanium, all these are required for stealth technology, for nuclear reactor, for 6G, for infrared, likewise, for night vision devices, for Virgin class submarine, F-35, the host of things. You talk about the artificial intelligence, talk about autonomous platforms, talk about robotics, talk about what do you call that? And many other things which are actually unfolding by the blockchain. So if you look at the paradigm, then you would come to a conclusion that there is something amiss. Although USA is the only country which has got more than 780 or more than 800 military bases all over the world. Every military base costs some money. They have got persons, they have got men, material, stores, equipments, etc. And no other country in the world has got so many. So why am I talking about the superpower? I'm talking about the superpower because without a superpower, the rules-based international order cannot exist. There is somebody who has to be a guardian of the law.
Absolutely.
So call it chowkidar by Indian expression or call it anything. Somebody has to do the policing. But is the policing being done in a bona fide manner? That is the moot question. We are in 21st century. And what has happened? Is the Cold War 1.0 same as the Cold War 2.0? I don't think so. The threats in 20th century were a different kind of a threat. You had a bipolar world. Now the threats in 21st century, Europe doesn't. In the heart of their hearts, I've spent quite a lot of time in Europe, just about 2 months back. I met with people of eminence, people who know, those who have the grassroots pulse. They have openly told me that they are not fearing that Putin is going to invade Europe with tanks on, like he did, or the USSR did in the Second World War. It is not going to happen that way. The bigger threat, when you talk to people of substance in Europe today, they give a classical example that the population of Europe used to be twice the population of Africa way back in 1950s. At the turn of the beginning of 21st century, the population of Africa has become twice the population of Europe. And the population of Africa is going to leapfrog, it is going to jump to more than 10 times by the end of 21st century. So what does it mean? It means that is their livelihood? Do they have socio-economic development? Do they have employment opportunities? Do they have education facilities? You call them that high impact community development, some acronym I found in the Ministry of External Affairs today. Those kind of China is the biggest investor in Africa today, by the way.
Yeah.
Followed by India. A lot of people say India has overtaken China. Sorry, India's pockets are not as deep as China. But China, is it spending for socio-economic development in Africa? Why am I highlighting this point? Because the threat to Europe today, the existential threat, is actually being posed, but not by Putin's war in Ukraine. I'm talking about the genuine input from the ground. Or you read a couple of articles in Economist, you will come to London West, that internationally famous magazine. You see, they are more scared of the boat people migrating from Northwest Africa and the Middle East. So how do you arrest this trend? Who are the boat people? On one hand, there is a necessity, it is driven by need. They require people who are skilled plumbers, electricians, those like carpenters or Medicaid experts. They require paramedics. They require, because the average age of Europe has gone up. I think it is almost close to 48 years now. 48 is Japan, Europe is 43, if I'm not wrong, the average age. Okay, so the average age of India is 29 years. So when you require, the aging population of Europe today is not able to fend for themselves, not able to sustain the day-to-day their existence. They require support, nursing, such like support. So what has happened? There is a demographic profile which has undergone significant change. I've been to Germany myself. I was horrified to see people of the indigenous population of Germany migrating from German to countries like Spain, Portugal. When I spoke to them on informal occasions, they said, sorry, we can't live and breathe freely in our own homeland. So what is wrong? Then they they painted a picture which I feel it is not appropriate to discuss here. Maybe in better moments, personal interactions I'll share. These are horrifying. So not only there, France itself is undergoing demographic profile. Look at the London, the UK, entire UK. Same is the case with Italy. That is why you would have found Meloni she had gone to Morocco, if I'm not wrong, to strike a deal with the Northwest African countries so that these people who are migrating, how best they can be arrested and made to stay homebound. Socio-economic development. Italy is spending lots of money in the Northwest African countries so that these people who are migrating, they are retained in the homeland itself. So this is just a brief glimpse. And third point I wish to highlight is that, keeping in view the time is at premium,
Yes, sir.
there is a project which was undertaken by a classified project by USA long back. I'll not go into details because Ajay has covered beautifully. So he's given a very comprehensive picture. This particular project was conducted. The name of the project was Clean Break. It's a classified project. 1997, Netanyahu was a member. They had very selected senators as also congressmen. What did the document say? This document of the project, the central part, it's covered many other issues. It was related to Middle East. Unfortunately, this project does not have any mention about Palestine. That is why you find Netanyahu, be it in the UN General Assembly, any global stage he has gone, he has always conducted his lectures or presentation with the help of two maps. And both the maps never had the picture of the map of Palestine. So what is it? What does it indicate? It indicates that Netanyahu is actually not a Netanyahu. He may be Prime Minister of Israel. Israel is not Israel, an independent autonomous. We know it is autonomous. It had its identity in 1948. UN has recognized this particular state. But there is something beyond that catches our eye. I won't be wrong, or it won't be an over exaggeration on my part. If it is so, then I'm sorry. I'm open to correction. It is a satellite post of USA. And also allow me to make a statement. No president of USA has ever come with his original thought process and been able to implement what he dreamt of. Ever. No president from 1776 till date you carry out. You know what happened to Kennedy in Dallas, how he was shot by the driver himself. The documents have been revealed now. I've been to the spot, I've seen myself. So what is it that I'm trying to bring out? I'm trying to bring out that whatever USA does, there is some invisible power, call it by any name, deep state, or some power which is supremely governing every action, no matter what Trump dreamt of doing. He dreamt of very good things, very noble things. Who doesn't want to stop these mindless conflicts going on in Central Europe and Middle East in the backdrop of pandemic? Who doesn't want? Innocent peoples are dying. Look at the loss, the kind of, the price rise in fuel, food, and fertilizer. How is it impacting? It is not only impacting the global south, it is impacting as much the global north as well. They may not have openly, admitted. It is only Germany, I think it is admitted that they're going through an official recession. You go to other countries, do shopping. I'm just back. I've done the shopping, even including USA. Unfortunately, the truth is that the country itself is going through very, very serious recession. They may or may not. GDP is growing at 1.3%. The same country about a year back was 2.8%. The rate of inflation was it was around 2.3. It has gone up to 3.6. Similarly, when you talk on one hand, they have debt, they have the high rate of inflation, the GDP is going down, economy is slowing down, and this good enough indications of a recession. What more are you looking for? And on top of it, tariff. When you talk about the tariff, let me remind the people, Ajay is a historian, so as you, Raj, you read a lot. There was a president once upon a time in USA, his name 1897 to 1901. If I respect my memory, William McKinley, you Google up, you'll find his name.
Yes.
William McKinley was a president of USA, only one of the presidents who was in love, and he was passionate about managing the federal budget out of tariff. He was a mastermind. He became a benchmark. And soon he realized that his passion was ditching him. He had to abandon this project. Who's the hero of Donald Trump? Political hero. The political hero, not much talked about in open domain, you will not find anywhere. Secretly, clandestinely, Donald Trump is in love with McKinley. He is the political hero. He wants to strategize his approach so that he is able to, address the challenges of the deficits in the federal budget purely out of tariff. Now, what is tariff? Tariff is you are charging some country that money is that country may be paying at the time of exporting those products, but unfortunately that money is recovered from the customers, the consumers of America. When the money is recovered from the consumer, those who understand the fundamentals of economics, they will link it up and establish a fact that the cost of a product, if it was $100 with 50% tariff, it becomes $150, and this leads to hyperinflation. Hyperinflation will not go into the details since you have already shown that it is time. Unemployment, serious unemployment. There is a drop in the unemployment. Do you know that out of 258,000, I was carrying out a calculation, Only 93 or 96,000 people have been taken. The rest all have been dropped. People are being laid over by multinationals in USA. So having given, how is it linked up with the main issue? The main issue
Yes.
here is that Israel today is not fighting its own battle. Without support of USA, it cannot do anything. There is a greater plan to ensure that there is a greater Israel comes into being in times ahead. If greater Israel has to come into being, what happens to Abraham Accord? If Abraham Accord is the solution, if IMEC is going to take us to a progressive roadmap of development and positive growth towards peace, harmony, and stability, then what happens to the grid? So each one, either of the issue is dependent on the other. Therefore, unless the main component who are the driver of this particular serious offensive activities in Middle East, unless they rethink or have a concept which is actually beneficial towards contributing towards stability and peace, no peace can be achieved. And last but not the least, there is a point which I wanted to, strategic rivalry Ajay has covered, project I have seen. Yes, the Battle of Omar. We need to understand that China played a very extraordinary role. When USA was failing, it brought Iran and Saudi Arabia to shake hands. A conflict which has been raging or inertia and friction. There is an open ladai going on for past 1400 years between Shia and Sunni. If China could bring these two countries together, it was a lifetime, I would say, golden milestone, historic milestone for the global order.
It will not happen.
But see what happened. Just 15 or 20 days short of signing the Abraham Accord, you see what happened on 7th October 2023. Hamas. When you talk about Hamas, who are the Hamas? Hamas are the one of the terrorists in the world who are not being called as terrorists in the United Nations even till date, despite the incident which has occurred on 7th of October. Same Hamas were the people who had been given identification as a political dispensation in 2006. They came into power. They were governing the Palestine. So there is a lot of dichotomy, there is a lot of contradictions. Oslo's agreement was signed way back in 1993. Many issues will come up because of shortage of time. I will not dwell into it. But when I talk about the Battle of Omar between Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Iran, there is a contestation which is in progress. Each one is trying to showcase. Iran is trying to showcase particularly that despite being a Shia-dominated country, it still is holding out, supporting the Hamas for the larger cause of the Islamic forces in the world. And Saudi Arabia, trying to show down Saudi Arabia and Turkey. Turkey is feeling so uncomfortable that it is getting out of the comfort zone. So it is looking for places like Pakistan, Bangladesh. Now Bangladesh, it has come in a big way with the help of Qatar. Qatar is taking the armed forces of Bangladesh to train the armed forces of Qatar. Qatar is giving money to Bangladesh to train the young children of Bangladesh in the madrasa education, foundational training in Islam is being promoted. So there is a worldwide, expansion of Islamic this thing. But how does it answer the moot question which you have asked? It answers the moot question unless there is a sincerity of purpose, unless the main drivers are identified, unless the stakeholders to the conflict, the meaningful stakeholder. If there is a war going on between Ukraine and Russia, unless Putin and Zelensky sit down together and speak to one-on-one, will there be any peace? I don't think so. Gone are the days. We are in 21st century. So similarly, out here, the double standards which are being actually reflected in day-to-day conduct. This particular conflict that Ajay covered, 60,000 people are being mobilized. Hamas can be destroyed physically, but ideologically cannot be destroyed. You decimate the people, decimate the tunnels, decimate the warheads, unless the primary source. Do you know that the corridor between Iran, it's a concept of octopus doctrine. What is octopus doctrine? Octopus head is actually the Iran, and the tentacles, one is represented by the, what do you call that? Yemen mein kya hai yaar? Houthis. Then you have Assad. Then you have Hezbollah. Then you have the fourth one. Nobody takes reference of that. It is Shahil il Baid. Sorry,
So-
Hashid il Shahid. This is the fourth one, which came into existence after
Fulani.
Yeah. So fourth one, like as you have militias. So these are the tentacles. You have broken the backbone of the tentacles, but you have not broken the backbone of the ideology. They still exist. Ajay made a very right point. You may have killed. There are 24 Hamas battalion, by the way. Out of 24, Israel it is claiming, as per the official document, they have neutralized, they have destroyed 23 battalions. But they realized before they could actually take stock of the 24 battalion, the
They're all
30,000.
replaced.
So it's a vicious cycle. So therefore, to bring stability, where is it heading to? It is heading to an unending, I would say, eternal conflict, unless some meaningful, substantive efforts are put in by the stakeholders. Same Palestine, people are not recognizing. There are efforts by the USA and other countries, Israel, to displace the Palestinians, send them to elsewhere. Where, I don't know. Gaza Strip, like you have rightly said, I suspect it is going to assume the profile of. There is another thing. Whenever there is a conflict in the world, any conflict, anywhere, including Vietnam, okay, the military principle followed is that you evacuate as much as possible. Try to relocate the civilians who are populated in the potential conflict zone to elsewhere,
Yes.
then the conflict takes place. Do you know that the Hamas or the Gaza Strip is only place in the world where the conflict is raging like hell? Civilians are
This is
still
not
there.
being allowed. Yes, sir.
Because the Hamas, they're firing at them. They're threatening, if you move out, if you leave your houses, we'll kill you. They are not going to kill them, but they're intimidating them. So these are the unique dimensions of warfare. And therefore, I personally feel that it is not going to come to an end so soon. This will continue until unless the superpower, that is the United States of America, changes its concept and perception of the global order, even if it is declining. So what? It has to take cognizance or give cognizance to the multipolarity in the world. It has to accept the reality.
Very right, sir.
Century of the Asia has come. It has to recognize, not by imposing tariff and double tariff on India, it doesn't actually stop India from rising. India is in an unstoppable position and will soon tell the world order how to resolve issues by diplomacy and dialogue. Thank you. Back to you.
Very good. Thank you, sir. We have some questions in the chat box. We will take that. I'll just summarize. General Sudhakar has made it a point that Israel is de facto a outpost of U.S. interest. It protects U.S. interest in the Middle East. This has been a very long position, but many Americans do not believe. They think that it is Israel who is taking advantage of USA, but the geopoliticians, experts, and knowledgeable people know that it is the US that is getting benefited by Israel being strong in Middle East, and this is going to have advantage to the USA. And also, General Sudhakar has actually given a very, very wider view of everything. We will take on the questions and they will come back to specific. Though the time is now left is very less, so maybe we will not be able to cover the entire gamut of issues that General Sudhakar has raised. I will take one question here from the chat box. It says, sir, thousands in Israel, including families of hostages that are alive, are protesting against proposed planned takeover Gaza and want Israel to make a deal. Is there merit in their request? I will request Colonel Raina to respond to this question, if you can.
Of course. Sir, whether you are a citizen of Gaza or you are a neutral observer like us, we all understand that to have a kind of peace going or whatever, some system, the 4 pillars which need to be addressed. That's what Gaza citizens also concerned when they're told to, they're given an option to move out and create a tourist center there. First is security. So they need to know who's going to police Gaza once, if the conflict dies down or cools off? Will it be IDF? Will it be Palestinian Authority? Will it be Arab peacekeepers or UN mission? Second is governance. Who's going to run the schools, hospitals, civil administration? Because again, like the allegation came, the hospitals had tunnels and they had the ammunition dump and everything. So international trusteeship or somebody will come. Funding for a place like Gaza to restart its life, you need donors. It could be Gulf, it could be Western aid pledges, and then of course tied to the reforms and legitimacy. So whatever is done, sir, will local Gazans accept it? Like if you place foreign powers there, a UN mission, wholly solely manned by Europeans and others, so Hamas will turn around and say, okay, we are now under occupation by foreigners. So there's a possibility that, I mean, there are few possibilities which are being worked out, which as per many people may actually happen, that you have a mix of international trusteeship, you have a multinational administration mandated by UN, and then you have hybrid local international model where you have non-Hamas, non-Fatah kind of people. And then, because like I mentioned, locals are also not sick of Hamas. Like General Saab mentioned, that locals are saying that they want to leave and they are not being permitted to leave. So there are undercurrents there. So I think making use of this whole thing, we can have a system going. But the bigger thing is, what does Israel want? Israel, at the same, as we sit discussing this, Israel is planning to take over the whole of Gaza by 25th of September. So when these Gaza people say that, okay, please don't take over Gaza, we suffered enough, and when we had an option to leave and could have been evacuated, we were held hostages here. So now that if things are cooling off or going to have reach some pause, so there's a merit in the request that, okay, let's make a deal and allow us to live on. Like General Sudhakar ji said, it's very difficult to predict. Most of us know that everything is in flux, and what a very valid point which sir said about US losing grip over things but not letting go his ambitions. So US is getting weakened but not letting go his ambitions. So in that mix, this aspirations of Gazans, I have my only doubts. I can only wish and pray that whatever they're looking for, the deal works out. So
thank you, Colonel Raina. There is another question is interesting, that in Europe, for the first time, we are seeing the diminishing support for Israel, and most of the UK, Canada, and France. There is a question in the chat box that says that they are recognized Palestine and several are under pressure. Netherlands and Germany to ban export to Israel. This has happened for the first time, that in midst of conflict, the European, some of the very important European nations are withdrawing their support from Israel, and the public has, and even their political leaders are up in arms to demand stoppage of arms supplies to Israel. Can General Sudhakar ji, can you throw light on this? How this has happened? How this change has happened suddenly? So much of anti-Israel.
It's a very good question. Who's asking?
Sam Keating, if I'm not wrong.
He asked a very intelligent question. You see, in geopolitics, there is nothing permanent except for the national interest. Okay, and the public opinion.
Sir, I will request you to make it short, because we are about to only a few minutes left for 8, which is the we will extend it 10 minutes more. But if you can keep it brief, sir. Thank you.
Sympathy is actually drawing out the people who are the fence sitters. Okay, example, G20 countries had only 10 supporters, 10 countries who are supporting Palestine. Okay, the remaining 10 never is to support. But do you know, if you take the statistics, the remaining 10 also have started supporting the Palestinian cause. So this itself is reflecting the changing dimensions of the world order, because they have had enough. Palestinians are also human beings. How long are you going to subject them to the lack of humanitarian assistance? This is inhuman. We are living in 21st century. Some semblance of rules-based international order should be there, and they are being denied the basic human rights facilities which are being extended. So these are the issues. You will find many more coming up. The global opinion will turn out in against Israel and consequently against USA in times ahead.
Sir, thank you, sir. I am of the opinion that this kind of support, anti-Israeli stance being taken by the European leaders and pro-Palestinian support is coming, as you have said, because on humanitarian and compassionate reason that Palestinians have the right, but more so due to domestic reasons, because now they have got you yourself has brought out that the demographic map of European politics is changing, and there is a huge constituency now that has to be placated and appeased. And most of this is coming from that angle, and this is only a rhetoric to please this constituency so that in the next election they vote for that leaders who stand up for them. Actually, Europe is not so much pro-Palestinian and anti-Israel. And secondly, I mean, two-state solution has been tried off for long enough, and it has consistently been failing. Of course, the blame is again comes to Israel, but a large part of the blame goes to the Palestinian or the people who are backing Palestine, because they don't want the Palestinian problem to be solved, because Palestine is a weapon to their larger objective, or to destroy Israel. That is the main issue. So we don't have much time to take more question now, because we have to teach the schedule, but still, yeah, but still I will give 2 minutes to both the speakers to wrap up their thing. And I will must say sorry to the viewers that the first day we have not been able to manage the time so well to take all the questions. Few questions are left, but in future we will make sure that all questions are addressed. Important questions we have taken. Sir, go ahead, sir. 2 minutes for you to wrap up.
Something to comment on the first question. The answer is yes. Do you agree? Because first preceding question was, the last part was, do you agree? Yes, I agree. That's my point of view. Second thing is, what is the larger game plan? The larger game plan has to be understood. The larger game plan is 1991, the disintegration of USSR took place. That means the Cold War 1.0 came to an end. With the disintegration, USA assumed on its own the unilateral power and the authority. But that unilateral power and authority was not to be seen on the ground. So based on this presumption or assumed status, USA unleashed a kind of a strategy. It is also another project, by the way. Let me tell you, what you see towards Central Europe is a project. What was the project? Project was from East Germany to Vladivostok. Expand without any stoppage. Does anyone know? Does any public domain, is it there in the open domain? No, nobody knows. So once you go into start researching, you'll come across the documents. You'll find there is a standing doctrine or a concept of USA which is unfolding gradually in absence of actual data and evidence. We always say कि deep state usko chala raha hai. Similarly in Middle East, similar thing is taken. The basic aim is to weaken, isolate China from all around. You isolate China by weakening the states. Like Ajay made a very good point, Central Asian Republic, where the strategic rivalry is going on. There is a new great game in progress between USA, China, Russia, and India is also doing its little bit. So basically, USA is trying its best to isolate China from all around. So you join the dots, that's it, I'll finish it, and thereafter, please kindly take on.
Yeah, Colonel Raina, please throw some light. See, there is a rivalry between the Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Iran for the leadership of the Islamic world. And the current conflict has much to do with this dynamics, because Iran has got a regional ambition to emerge as a dominant power in Middle East, and the stumbling block has been Israel, because unless Israel is destroyed, that ambition cannot be fulfilled. And if that happened, Saudi Arabia and all other Arab states are too weak to challenge Iran, and then Iran emerges as the leader of the Islamic world, and it has got a global jihadi agenda that they very openly talk about. But there another angle is Turkey. Turkey itself has got ambition to lead this jihad global the campaign for the caliphate. Also I will point out here that Turkey's Erdogan, though he is giving all the statements to the effect what just now we have mentioned about the global his global ambition and establishing of the caliphate, but actually he is supporting it in practical Israel. All the oil is coming through from Azerbaijan through Turkey. They have not stopped it. All shipments is coming through Turkey. So in de facto they are not doing, but rhetorically they are doing. So kindly throw some light. You are expert on this subject, sir.
Sir, the audience which Turkey or Saudi Arabia or Iran is reaching out, they go for rhetoric. They don't go for facts. This audience, the audience is they're very clear about it. As far as Turkey, which is, like you rightly said, that still living a dream of caliphate. Now the other contender is Saudi Arabia. Iran, General Sudhakar has spoken very in detail that the Shia and then still supporting that we already covered.
Sunni will never happen.
So here's how one game which MBS has played is, by the way, sir, MBS who refused to shake hands with Biden, his family has trade or business ties with the present president of America, Trump family.
Yeah.
And as per one theory, this migration to Europe was a ploy of MBS. As per that theory, sir, which I have no evidence, but then it makes sense, that he actually went and bought over European leaders, because in Europe, unlike our leaders in Asia, where they retire with all the benefits, a president today, tomorrow will be standing to buy milk or bread in a normal street. That is the culture of Europe, most of small little countries. I believe their post-retirement life was insured, assurance given, and then this migration happened. The reason behind this is that Makkah and Medina are in Saudi Arabia. As these people migrate into Europe and Europe gets Islamized, every Muslim dreams of coming back to Makkah, Medina. So that, and with the oil drying up in the background, like we say UAE, I think out of 9, 2 states have dried up already. So the ploy was very simple, that let Islamic ideology and the public spread into Europe. You have the permanent clientele coming on to you for centuries ahead. As long as Makkah, Medina and Islam exist, these people come. And that's how MBS was trying to counter Turkey. Turkey, however, is playing a game. Is good with Russia. Is also good with. So all these conflicts will continue, sir. And like I keep saying one thing, General Saab, if you permit me to say that people talk of Ghazwa-e-Hind, they talk of Islamizing the world. I say, okay, I'm willing to convert. You give me a guarantee that the moment I convert, there'll be no war. The problem is they've been fighting with each other. And this fight will continue, and people sitting outside will keep exploiting, whether it is USA or tomorrow to Russia, or as the things spread, one day we will also a role to play. So it's a dirty politics, Islamic world domination. MBS is played very smart, sir. And if the European dream comes true, I think finally Saudis will lead. And that's why the only weakness they have, and for which they are asking for guarantees from USA's nuclear umbrella. They want nuclear protection umbrella being in because they have money. So this Turkey and Iran and Saudi Arabia will actually lead to another flashpoint in foreseeable future, and that will be very sad end to this whole. I call it West Asia. So I don't use the word Middle East. So that's how I sum it up, sir.
Thank you, Colonel Raina. We need to have another session to actually give conclusion to our discussions today, because I think it is being left hanging midway. And I'm sure I'll plan another one to carry this discussion further to some more conclusive phase. And thank you very much, General Sudhakar ji, for taking time to be part of our inaugural podcast today. And we have not done bad. We are just short of by 5-7 minutes. And thank you, Colonel Raina. It was excellent listening to you. And I thank all my viewers. Please stick with us. We will bring many more interesting issues. We have got very good speakers in General Sudhakar and Colonel Raina and the likes, and we will bring them on the platform, and we'll give you very good insights into what's happening in the world and in the Indian security, national security arena. Thank you very much, General Sudhakar. Thank you very much, Colonel Raina. And thank you all the technical support from the CLAWS. We will meet again. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.